Story 1, yes. Staying in shape, choosing a better path in college, avoiding some bad decisions, seizing lost opportunities. There are a ton of minor mistakes that built up over time. Story 2, I would definitely take the chance. Choose different hobbies and just have a different outlook on life today. Oh, and invest in some companies I know will become successful. If I were to wake up tomorrow as a 10-year-old, I would have a little trouble getting around without being stopped. Paying rent would be difficult. And as a 30-year-old man, convincing my parents that I somehow ended up in a 10-year-old's body. Story 3. I have lots of regrets, but I'm also extremely happy with my life now. If I could live things over again, make fewer mistakes, and still end up with the same wonderful woman and kids, then maybe. Giving it all up to try again? No thanks. Story 4. Easy. If you have a spouse or children, don't do it because your family will never be the same, or rather, there is a very low chance it will be the same. If you are alone with no significant attachments other than your parents or friends, then it's an option. Story 5. Absolutely, I would fix some of my mistakes, play sports, and play in the band. Also, there was a girl that I met in late middle school, and as absolutely dumb as it sounds, I still have feelings for her, but I never told her, and she vanished before I could do anything about it. Anyway, I would have loved to have had a chance with her. Also, in general, I would try to be a better person. I would try not to be the troublesome kid I was. Oh, and I wouldn't get overweight. Story 6. So many mistakes to fix in the teenage years. Take me back. Edit. I didn't expect this to get big. Thanks, everyone. Just a bit of advice, don't focus on your past mistakes. Focus on how you can improve your life from here on out. Story 7. I ask this question because it is one I think about often. At age 12, I had a blood clot in my spinal cord. There was no apparent cause. I was a relatively healthy young boy. It has been 8 years now, and I have not walked since. I think a lot about the things I would change if I could start over and prevent it from happening. My life would be so different. Story 8. Before the birth of my daughter, I would have said yes. Now, every single mistake in the past led to the conception and birth of the joy of my life. I am not going to risk anything to accidentally erase her from existence. Edit. I have never watched About Time. Thanks for the recommendations, everyone. I will catch it as soon as possible. Edit 2. Thanks for my first silver and gold. Story 9. I would not go back to being 10. I am in a much better and stable position right now than I was when I was just 10. I used to be sick all the time. I had the worst acne problem. People at school were extremely mean to me. Also, the entire puberty period was tough for me. I was overweight, my skin was dull, and my eating habits were the worst. So thanks but no thanks. Story 10. I'm 10. I become the most depressed and intelligent tween in history due to the abrupt loss of my wife and children. My parents don't understand what's happening, and I don't tell them because it sounds crazy. I'm not taken to a psychiatrist for years because we don't have insurance and can't afford it. I have behavioral problems at school. No one can deny my seemingly unnatural intelligence, but I'm so bored by the work that, instead of doing assignments, I make up and solve my own calculus problems. I write code in programming languages that don't exist yet. I demand access to a computer, though I don't have one. My grades fall, and I'm often sent to the principal's office for disrupting class. But this is America, so I graduate grade after grade. My 4th grade teacher recognizes how much I already know and gives me high school textbooks. It's a good year. The next year returns to normal and crushes me. In 8th grade, my mom's insurance coverage changes, and psychiatric issues are finally covered. I go to a psychiatrist for the first time. I've been living retrograde for about 4 years. The sharp edges of grief have dulled, but the boredom of an adult living as a child has not. I extract a promise from the psychiatrist not to tell my parents or anyone else what I'm about to reveal. He agrees. I tell him I've been transplanted back into my life from 2018, that I should be 35 with a wife and kids, and I've been dealing with this alone since I was 10. He doesn't believe me. I write him some computer code in languages that don't exist yet. I write calculus problems and equations that I shouldn't understand. He thinks I'm a prodigy but crazy. I tell him George W. Bush will win the presidential election. He thinks I'm guessing. I scream about 9/11 1 year away. He's no longer laughing. I've made a mistake. He thinks I'm dangerous and planning 9/11. I try to backpedal, saying that it's Al-Qaeda. He asks if Al-Qaeda speaks to me. I know I've lost him. They put me on antipsychotics. It kills my mood, stunts my mind, ruins my enthusiasm for everything. I'm no longer depressed or acting out. So the treatment is hailed as a success. I get regular checkups from the psychiatrist. 9/11 happens. I'm dragged into a meeting with my parents, the psychiatrist, a police officer, and two men in suits. My parents don't understand what's happening. They try to get me to talk, but I refuse. They have all internet traffic from my house, some embarrassing, but none incriminating. I demand to be taken off the drugs and allowed to return to baseline. They agree. I am under house arrest with an ankle bracelet. I can go to school and home. I don't care. I never made friends, even my old friends from my past life were too juvenile. A month later, a repeat of the meeting. How did I know about 9/11? I ask for a lawyer. They deny me one. I shrug and stop speaking. They get me a lawyer. I tell my lawyer everything. He doesn't believe me. I ask for a new lawyer. I tell my new lawyer everything. He doesn't believe me. I ask for a new lawyer. I tell my new lawyer everything. She doesn't believe me but says she'll work on my behalf as if she did. I agree. We tell them nothing. The house arrest is a violation of my rights, and they can't hold me on suspicion of anything. My lawyer threatens to go public. They back off. My freshman year grades are terrible. I realize I need my grades up if I want to go to the right college to find my wife, so I double down on my schoolwork. I go from a D average screw-up to acing every class. My teachers are confused but relieved. The senior year, I apply to only one college. My parents think I'm crazy. I get in. I apply to the honors program. The honors program where I met my wife over 20 years ago on my personal timeline, where I'd live in the same dorm building as her and work late on the same engineering team as her, the time when our relationship began. I don't get in. My grades are too low after tanking my freshman year. I'm going to the right college, but I can't replicate the circumstances of our meeting. There's hope, but it's slim. I go to college. I know what clubs she goes to, what friends she has. I contrive to be wherever she is. I spend months in her orbit working up to asking her out. How do you ask someone out who you were with for 13 years, then lost 8 years ago, who doesn't remember you at all? How do you approach her with the baggage of your entire relationship that she has no knowledge of? Eventually, I do it. I ask her out. She says no. I don't understand. My entire world is crashing down around me. She is my wife. Doesn't she understand? I go crazy. It scares her, and she runs away. I try to follow her, but she hits a campus safety panic button. With my history of mental illness, I'm involuntarily committed. I spend a month in the asylum. Two men in suits visit me one day. They say they can get me out, but I have to tell them about 9/11. It's the Federal Bureau of Investigation agents from all those years ago. I've given up. I tell them everything. They get me out. I'm set up with a nice house in the middle of nowhere, a good computer, state-of-the-art internet. I have to keep feeding them information about the future. In my free time, I'm a software engineering consultant. The Federal Bureau of Investigation pays my expenses, so anything I make is spare money. January 2nd, 2009, I've built a powerful computer. January 3rd, 2009, I start mining Bitcoin. I mine a lot. I mine far more than anyone expected someone could mine so early. The Bitcoin economy never takes off because no one else can get in on the early mining with normal computing hardware. Cryptocurrency fails before it can even get a start. 2 years later, the Federal Bureau of Investigation approaches me, looking for more information about the future. I've got nothing left. I've told them everything I can remember. They kick me out and repossess all the computers they bought me and take all the ones I bought myself. I've got nothing left. I wander the streets of small towns, hitchhiking aimlessly. I lay down on a park bench one night. The next morning, I don't get up. So that's a hard no. Story 11. Of course, it would be easy to use your knowledge of the future to become wealthy. You know all the right companies to invest in. You know about Bitcoin before it becomes big. For me, the most frustrating thing would be having the mind of an adult and having to endure being treated like a child. I would definitely tough it out, though. Story 12. Absolutely, I would. I actually play this scenario out in my head all the time. It thrills me to think about going back to 10 years old with all the knowledge I have today because I could make something of myself and not make the same mistakes I've made later in life. I'm 22. I wouldn't be a disappointment. It would also be fun to write music lyrics of current songs or discuss college-level information and blow people's minds. I also want to wear a bathing suit and not care about how I look because I developed an eating disorder at 11. God, I wish I could go back. Story 13. Yes, my brain, emotional, and intelligence development was really hampered by neglect and emotional abuse growing up, and I didn't know at the time because I had no way to compare it or prove it. Now, it takes manual effort every day to learn how to be around people and to fight off the urge to be suicidal because it's so normal after years of training. Story 14. If I can look up the winning lottery numbers real quick, then yes. If not, I know who will get elected president and who won the Super Bowl last year. That should get me a pretty penny. And I would need to keep a lookout for a company called Uber and then invest. Story 15. No, I probably wouldn't choose my children's father a second time. But those kids are perfect. And all my mistakes leading up to them were totally worth it. Story 16. All the top comments saying yes are completely ignoring the emotional costs. It was my answer for a long time too. I used to daydream about this. But I have cherished friends, a blossoming relationship, and 2 younger siblings that wouldn't have been born yet. And I would not find that sacrifice worthwhile. I'd also probably not be prepared for the loss of autonomy that comes with being 10 years old. I also imagine it would be quite lonely since I don't think other children and teens would be particularly enjoyable company. Though it would be nice to get a head start on my hobbies, graduate high school at 13, and make bank on stocks and Bitcoin. Story 17. Absolutely, I would start over. I'd get to see my dad again, and I'd also get to avoid the failed medical procedure I had that's pretty much ruined my entire adult life. I would definitely start over if given the chance. Story 18. No, I won't check the replies here. A healthy diet, exercise, study, or lost opportunities. Guys, come on. You can do it today too. You do not need a magical wand. Even if you can go, you will not do them. Story 19. Absolutely. So many decisions I would change. I would stand up to my middle school bully the first time he hit me. I would choose a different college degree. And I would definitely not be so shy about asking the girls out that I talked myself out of asking out. But in the end, I would be able to make more informed decisions. Nothing to lose there. Story 20. No, I don't think I would. While there are all the obvious things, spending more time working out, staying in shape, knowing enough to choose better jobs or careers, figuring out some things I messed up, investing in Bitcoin, the usual stuff, I think that by the time I'd be old enough to do anything, I'd have gone absolutely insane. Don't forget that you're now the mind of a full-grown adult in the body of a 10-year-old. That means all the things you're used to being able to just do, you can't. Either legally, logistically, or physically. Want to go somewhere? Can't unless your parents drive you. Want to watch that movie? Get mom's permission first. Hungry? Better wait for dinner. Hop on the internet. Even if you have it, get ready for kid blockers on most internet service providers for a long time. You're also going to become entirely isolated from your peer group. Again, you're a full-grown adult that now has to relive years of elementary and middle school among kids. Yeah, it's cool you're smart enough to blaze through the schoolwork, but you still have to have social interactions in a way that would be stimulating or interesting. It's going to be years before you can have discussions, debates, or even just conversations on the level you're used to having. You can't talk about your favorite media if it hasn't been made yet, your favorite book if it hasn't been written, your biggest interest if the research hasn't been done yet. And then let's not get into the crushing burdens of future knowledge. I was 10 years old in 1999. That's 2 years to prevent September 11th. Only, how do I do it? I'm going to be 10, then 12 years old. How exactly am I supposed to convince a pre-September 11th world that something like September 11th could happen? How do you do that without people or your parents being convinced you're just nuts? How do you try to report or warn of something like that without getting in trouble? And then you have to just wait for it to happen. You know it's going to happen. You know it's going to change the world. And you can't do anything. Add on to that all the little things like family members fighting with each other, breaking up, dying from illness or accidents, all things that you'd have no way as a kid or even teenager to influence or impact. No matter what you do, that blood clot or stroke or tumor is still going to be there in that loved one. And while there's a certain joy to getting to spend more time with them, you still have to watch them die again. And then what if you're married now or have kids? How long is it until you meet your spouse? How many relationships did you have before then? How many did they have? How long did you know each other before you'd actually started going out? Imagine seeing someone you know you're meant to be with, someone you love with all your heart, but not only are they possibly far too young to really understand what you're expressing, but you're going into a relationship fully formed with all the knowledge and experience with them, and they might not even know you. My wife and I were friends for almost a decade before we started dating. That would be a decade of seeing her going through other relationships or being with other people until the time was right. And if you try to change that, to get together sooner, how do you not come off like a total creep? You know all their little secrets, their likes and dislikes, things you don't even register consciously about them that you know or account for. Imagine a total stranger coming up to you and interacting like they've known you for ages, and you've never even met them before. How freaked out would you be? And what if you have kids? Assuming you actually managed to get with the same person you were originally with, will your kid in the new timeline be the same one? What if you had a son and suddenly have a daughter, or even something where your child acted or looked a certain way, but a different sperm and egg connected because of your new life and they're entirely different? How do you handle that? So you've got to deal with a sudden and total lack of independence, down to things like when you go to sleep, no relatable peer groups or interactions, foreknowledge of events that you'll be utterly helpless to actually influence, and the constant worry about relationships or entire people that might not even properly exist yet. It would drive you mad. It would be hell. And there'd be no one you could talk to about it that would believe it was true. At best, you're that weird kid who thinks he's from the future and everyone just kind of looks at you weird. At worst, you're put on medication or therapy that will slowly break your mind and convince you the whole other life you had was just your imagination, erasing your entire reason to relive your life and fix things. After all, it was just a delusion, and thanks to your meds, you can't even really remember that much about it anyway. While I'm sure there are people who are in positions where it would be a blessing to go back, I'm definitely not one of them. And I think realistically, most people wouldn't be either if you really think about it.